Podcast is Rumble. It's available on iTunes. In the beginning of the podcast, Michael Moore sets up the fact that he is acquainted and friends with both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and that he's had them both in numerous documentaries. He's known Elizabeth Warren for almost 10, 15 years, since like 2004. He's known Bernie Sanders since the late 90s. So this is not someone who's a casual observer. This is not someone like me who just gives commentary, who only knows about these people in newspapers. He's actually had them in films. So there's a level of familiarity and knowledge about these people that is not typical, or it is exclusive to those who've actually dealt with them in real life. So with that being said, Michael Moore lays out painstakingly in the beginning of his podcast, and let me come back on the screen and say this because I want to make sure people get it. Sometimes I love podcasts. I love the vocal thing. I love these podcasts where they break it down and it sounds really great. And if you got a good mic and good sound, you can really feel engrossed in a podcast. But for this part, I want you to be able to see my face, because this is important. Michael Moore takes the time to lay out the respect level that he has for Elizabeth Warren. What she meant to him, what she means to him, what he felt, what he feels she has meant to progressive policies, to America in general, in our battle to make America a more humane place to live, a more humane nation. And it is not rushed. It is deep. It has levels and colors and flavors, and it's very interesting the way he lays this out. So I want to make sure, because I think it's something that we don't do enough. I know I don't do it enough. I know that I don't take my time and delve, into these areas of nuance, these grays and these light, I don't know, magentas and all these different levels and gradients of truth and falsehoods and and what we tend to do is we say, if this person disagrees with me, this person's corrupt. This person disagrees with me, this person's a liar. If you disagree with me, this person's a double agent. This person is a corrupt individual. This person's on the take. It's like we have these broad brushes in which we so quickly pull out. And Michael Moore does something that I like. It's not my thing, man. And I need to work on it, frankly, where bad. Like, that's easy. This bad. This person's bad. Horrible. Scumbag. Sellout. Get rid of them. And that's not what Michael Moore does. So back to the podcast. He has laid out Elizabeth Warren as an individual with lots of layers and why she's important and what she meant. And now we go to clip one.
I feel about Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And I was, on Monday afternoon, paralyzed that her staffers would say such a thing, that any of us who've known Bernie forever know automatically, we don't even have to hear him denying it, that there's no way he would say this, because there's no way he thinks that. He has been a supporter of women running. I mean, I'll put up on the podcast page here the YouTube of Bernie from 1988 saying a woman, can and should be president of the United States. There's a thing from 1987 with him encouraging women to run for office, and especially teenage girls, start thinking now, when you turn 18, you can run for office. I mean, he's just been a huge supporter of this. I mean, he's such a supporter of wanting a woman president that when it was getting close to the 2016, like in 2015, trying to decide who are we going to all run to beat whoever the Republican nominee is going to be, and Bernie thought, who should run is Elizabeth Warren. And he went to her in 2015 to try to talk her into running for president. He said, you could do this. I think, if we need you now. She thought about it, and she decided, she only had one term in the U.S. Senate, but so did Obama, right? I don't even think he had a full term. But she thought it best to sit it out. She didn't want to, especially as it was looking more and more like it was going to be Trump. But even if you think about it, even back then, nobody really knew it was going to be Trump. I mean, okay, yes, I did say a few things, but she decided to stay on the bench. which is fine. That's her right, and she wanted a little more experience in the Senate, whatever. But in deciding not to run, Bernie then decided, well, if Elizabeth is not going to run, then I'm going to run. And so in the spring of 2015, late spring, he walked outside the U.S. Capitol building to a microphone, a few reporters, and made his announcement that he was running for president. Then went back inside to his office to finish his corned beef sandwich. So that's the Bernie I know. That's the Bernie. I remember talking to him after Trump's victory in 2016 and thinking about how cool it was that a woman had beaten him, that Hillary Clinton had 3 million more votes, and he could never, ever be able to claim that the majority of Americans wanted him as president. They wanted her. She won. She won what we call the popular vote. If you're listening from another country, I will not waste your time any longer trying to explain to you how in a democracy where the person who gets the most votes doesn't win the election. I've spoken enough about it. I'll speak more to it later some other day. But you know what I'm talking about. We elected our first woman president, except she couldn't take office because of a clause in our Constitution. And I remember saying to him, because a lot of people were starting to say then, it's, maybe we shouldn't have run a woman, or, it's because she was a woman. All the Trump hate, all the haters that support Trump hate women and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but in spite of all that, she did win. There's a lot of hate out there. There's a lot of misogyny, but she won. So I said to Bernie, it would be really cool in 2020, have a ticket with 2 women running on the same ticket, president and vice president. Like, go counterintuitive here. Don't go the way a lot of these pundits are saying, the country just wasn't ready for a woman. Let's run 2 women on the same ticket. I'm not kidding. I really think that would work. I thought afterwards, yes, because it would be so inspiring. Imagine 2 kick-ass women on the ticket. That's the Bernie Sanders I know. And the fact, when this happened on Monday, and people immediately started writing me, press was asking me what was my reaction to this. I didn't want to say anything. I wanted it to go away. I wanted to go away because we have only one job right now, and that's to defeat Donald Trump. Remove him from the White House, and then let's fix the system that gave us Donald Trump so that we never get another Donald Trump again. That's what we should be spending our time doing. The fact that we are even talking about this on this podcast is taking up time away from what we need to be doing. But after almost 48 hours of this, and after watching the debate last night, I just felt like a knife in the heart, my heart. I thought by the end of Monday afternoon, after this malicious lie was told about Bernie, I thought, okay, well, Elizabeth, knowing what I know of her, I mean, we're not close personal friends or anything. I'm just saying that the Elizabeth Warren I know, by the end of this evening, is going to issue a statement saying, I'm sorry about this report. I don't know who did this on my staff, but that's just not anything near what Bernie said. It's not true. He, of course, does not believe that a woman can't win the presidency of the United States. And she did. She made her statement within a couple of hours on Monday night. And the statement was essentially confirming the lie, continuing the lie that, and maybe I should stop right here and say, when I say the lie, I'm saying, obviously I wasn't in the room. There's only 2 people in the room. Only 2 know the truth. So one of them is lying right now, and one of them is not. Unless there was some misunderstanding. I mean, a lot of people have spoken about how maybe Bernie was talking about whoever's running against Trump in 2020, if it's a woman, his level of hate and misogyny is going to be so intense that it'll be a rough road to hoe. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, obviously. I mean, how many people, including yourself, if I could turn the clock back to 2006, how many of you said, oh, I love Barack Obama, but, I mean, come on, this is the United States of America. There's no way he's going to win. Because what you were saying was there's no way a black man can win in this country. And why were you saying that? Well, you were saying it because you know that the level of racism in this country is still pretty high, pretty disgusting, pretty sad. And a man, not only black, but with the name Barack Hussein Obama. Give me a fucking break, right? You know How many of you are listening to this right now? That's what you thought. That's what you said. And then you realized at some point, oh, you know what? I'm wrong. I think he can win. I'm going to go to work for him. I'm going to get out the vote. I'm going to vote. So I know it's not unusual then if some people still think that a woman can't get elected. I don't know why you would think that now. And as Bernie said at the debate last night, he just asked the audience, who believes that a woman can't get elected president of the United States? A woman can't win. Nobody in the audience raised their hand, It's like nobody. I didn't hear anybody shout out, I do. I mean, I don't. No, that didn't happen.
Right, so as you can see there, Michael Moore, he makes the case for why Elizabeth Warren, what he thought was going to happen. And actually, guys, he thought that she was going to come out and that she was going to correct the record, of that this was just a rogue person on her staff who put this information out, and then it got to CNN, and CNN ran with it. But as he pointed out, that's not what happened, is it? What happened was she doubled down on it. She went out and she confirmed it. So that's like horrible stuff. But now what we're going to get into is Michael Moore's taking the gloves off, and he's going to say some things. He's going to expose some truths. And this is where, as I listened to it, it made me think a little deeper about what we're doing here and how we're addressing these issues. And let me just play it for you, and then we'll talk about it. How about we do that? Yeah.
I feel about Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And the rest of the country to know about. Nobody other than people who went to Harvard, or if they read your papers or whatever, nobody knew who you were. And I'm pretty sure I was the first person to take you to a nationwide audience through my movies. I mean, there's you and I back in, where it's, 2006 or whatever, talking about what we now call Medicare for all, but a real plan to where we would have what the Canadians and the French and the Swedes and the British and the Irish and everybody else has. Oh, man. It was exhilarating having this footage of you, having you say the things that you said. That's not the Elizabeth I've been looking at in the last year or so. So many times you've said things that I know weren't true, and I knew it. I think other people knew it too, and nobody wanted to say. We didn't want to say anything because you're too important. You're too good. We need you. We need you. And so I would just ignore what you said or did, and just, hey, we're all human. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. I say things and I think, later I go, why did I say that? Oh no, was that right? No, I think I was off by a digit there. I got to get that right. We all do that. She started saying things like her presidential campaign was 100% grassroots funded, which really isn't or wasn't true, because first of all, she carried over, millions of dollars that her Senate campaign had raised and not spent. And a lot of that campaign money came from wealthy donors. In fact, at the last debate, when she was criticizing Mayor Pete there for having his, wine cave, high-end wine cave fundraisers, but she'd had her wine sipping fundraisers too at one point back in the day when she was running for Senate. And it was like, well, don't be hypocritical here. You're accusing him of doing what, you've done. Nathan Robinson, who's the editor and publisher of Current Affairs, has written a very good piece outlining these various things that she's said and done during the campaign. And it's been painful for those of us who love her, and we're not wanting to say anything, but it's like, how long do you go without saying anything? You let it go so long and we don't point out her embellishments over the last year. And then something like this happens where it doesn't pass the sniff test. Bernie didn't say that. You just in your gut know it. And you don't know why it got said here, but it got said. And now, she said it and went to the press with it a year and a month later after it allegedly happened. And you're thinking, yeah, this is where, remember back, a number of months ago where she said her dad was a janitor. That's the word she used. And one of her brothers got upset, called the press up and said, no, she's not telling the truth. Our dad was not a janitor. He did maintenance work. There was a time when he was laid off between jobs, and so he did maintenance work at an apartment complex. He did things like, keep the pool clean and filtered. He mowed the lawn, did maintenance work, and he was a maintenance man. And in fact, when she ran for Senate, she said that her dad for some time had been a maintenance man. That was the word she used. In her autobiography, she called him a maintenance man. But suddenly in the presidential campaign, she starts referring to him as a janitor, which I know that seems like splitting a hair, but when your siblings are like, hey, we love our dad here, and of course there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a janitor, but he wasn't a janitor. And one of them just had it and went to the press with it. And you're thinking, oh, geez. Okay, well, I can understand. Yeah, so yeah, I'm constantly making excuses for myself when I hear these things with her. And I'm thinking, okay, no, yeah, but come on, who cares? Janitor, maintenance man, knock it off. We need her. She's good people. Then it comes out that she'd been a Republican for most of her life, more than half of her life. She'd been a Republican up to the age of, I think, 47 or whatever. And it came out, and it was like, what? How come I don't know this? She voted for Nixon. She voted for Reagan. She voted for the first Bush. She didn't switch from being a conservative Republican until 4 years before the beginning of the 2000s here, before this century. I think 1996, she switched. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, thank you for switching, by the way. We want to have our hands extended to anybody that wants to. But, and there's no reason actually to hide that. You might actually get more votes telling people that, hey, I used to be like you. I used to vote for Republicans. There's no need to hide this sort of thing. It's like with all these other things, there's no need to really embellish the truth. You can actually state the truth. But then the one that we don't even want to bring up because of Trump's racism, when it was discovered that she had listed her race on numerous government forms and college forms documents, she listed her race as American Indian. And of course that got vetted and it found out that, it wasn't true. She may have had some, Indian ancestor somewhere along the way. But once Trump got a hold of it, you know what he did with it. Started calling her a racist name, and we were all appalled by it. And you know what? If somebody has some Indian, then they're Indian. So we don't care. In fact, we celebrate it, we embrace it. And then she did that crazy thing with the ancestry, the DNA test, and discovered that she was somewhere between 162, how do you say that? 162nd American Indian, between that and 1024th American Indian. Wow. And then when this happened yesterday, this came back in my head and I'm thinking, yeah. And I went and I found that online, the card that she had filled out. One of the times that when she applied to go to college or to get a grant or for the bar, and where it says race, on the line where it says race, and it always says, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but it helps us with our facts and our information. And so it doesn't give a bunch of options that you can check. It just says race. And in her handwriting, she wrote American Indian, not white/American Indian, American Indian. And then it hit me yesterday, and I thought, I don't want to think about this. But the truth is, white people who are listening to this, if we are to claim that we are also people of color when we're not, the purpose of that is to take a grant away from somebody who is of color, to take a seat at a university, to be granted the seat, you, a white person, instead of somebody of color who was, in my eyes, deserving of it, because we're trying to rectify a history of bigotry and racism in this country. And why she would do that. I mean, look, she comes out of the 60s. If you're from the 60s or 70s, there was a lot of lot of attention paid to American Indians that had never been paid to them before. I remember one of my favorite books, still is of all time, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And if you could claim or find that you had any Indian ancestors, that was like the coolest thing. I remember I have friends that, were like, yeah, I'm 1/4 Native American. And it'd be like, cool. It was a cool thing. It was something you wanted to be proud of. And, in part because what a shitty deal the Indians had been given, the genocide that they had to experience. But now when I think about embellishing the truth like this, not even putting the word white on that line, white/American Indian. Oh, it's killing me to have to even talk about this. Fuck you, Trump. Fuck you if you're listening. You're a fucking racist. Calling her Pocahontas. But none of this ever had to have been discussed if she hadn't done this a number of times. Harvard asked her if it was okay for them when she graduated, because she had put that on her form that she was American Indian, could they claim her as their first woman of color graduate? And she said yes. How much of this do you have to listen to before you say, I can't turn my head on this anymore? She was confronted by somebody at a town hall meeting about, her kids going to private schools, and she insisted that her children, quote, went to public schools. And then it turns out that one of them actually did go to a private school. There's nothing wrong, first of all, by saying your kids went to a private school. It's okay. I went to a Catholic school. The Obama girls went to a private school. You don't think any less of them. I hope nobody thinks any less of me. I went to a Catholic school. There's nothing wrong with that. And if one of your kids went to a public school, one went to a private school, then just say that. Most of us, especially if we're from the working class, we kind of like it when we hear that somebody does a little bit better, that there may be a way out of what, the hand that we were dealt in the working class. Hey, did you hear so-and-so, got into Princeton?
Right. I want you to know that continues on and on. That what you just heard is just a mere appetizer for the main course. So for the main course, I suggest you go to find Michael Moore's podcast. It's called Rumble. It's on iTunes. I strongly suggest you go check that out. Just before I forget, Ben Cohen, national co-chair for Bernie Sanders' campaign, will be my guest next Wednesday. That's Wednesday. Ben Cohen will be my guest. More information about the time that actual interview will happen, but that's going to happen. And how did that happen? We've just been working really hard to get guests. We've been sending out request after request and follow up. There's no inside game. There's none of that. It's just I'm working my ass off. That's it. And getting a little bit of help with that. So thank you, Ben, for agreeing to do that, and I'll see you Wednesday. Now back to Michael Moore. What I love about this is the way that Michael Moore lays this out is just there's no animosity in it. It's just matter-of-factly stating the truth. And if we keep in mind that the whole point of doing this is not to beat someone up, but it is to tell the truth, because this is too important for us to not tell the truth. Like, this matters. This is not a game. This is not for likes. This is not for shares. This is for the future. This is important. And we are of the group of people that believe that it is important. So when people say, well, you Bernie bots, you're delusional, you believe anything Bernie says. No, we don't. Now, thanks to Michael Moore laying this out in the podcast, he made mention of Nathan Robinson. Nathan Robinson has a magazine called Current Affairs. And you can find that at currentaffairs.org. And on that website, I found an article. It's called The Credibility Gap. And Mr. Robinson just put this out, right? I'm going to run down a few more things about Elizabeth Warren that are kind of important because they go to character, they go to ethics, they go to background, history, they go to showing a pattern of not being the most forthcoming person, to put it mildly, right? Or to being just a blatant liar, to put it bluntly. As it was stated by Michael Moore, here we go. Let me start from here. He says, Warren always tells the truth. I mean this because she does not always tell the truth. I have documented these at length in the video and in previous articles for this website. Many of them are small, but they are also shameless and show a willingness to bend the truth for political convenience. They include saying she opposed fancy wine fundraisers even though she held them herself. Andy has a link to her holding her own fundraisers. Raising money using the exact methods she now denounces as corrupting and falsely claiming her presidential campaign was 100% grassroots funded. There's a link to these claims. She carried over millions from a Senate campaign funded by the wealthy. A link is a link here for that. Claiming her father was a janitor when her brother insists he wasn't. There's a link for that. Everything I'm listing, there's a link, so just know that. If it doesn't have a link validating it, I'm not listing it, okay? Pretending to have represented the interests of consumers when she was in fact working for corporations who were contesting the legal claims of retired coal miners, women sickened by faulty breast implants, rural cooperatives, and dead NASCAR drivers. She said she was working for the people. No, she was working for the corporations. Against the people. Not too different than, remember when we talked about Hillary Clinton with sitting on the board of Walmart? Not too different than that. Claiming for years on government forums that her race was American Indian. We already covered that. When a mother accused her of having sent her children to private schools, insisting her children went to public schools, when one of them actually did go to private school. You just heard Michael Moore bring that up. Claiming to support Medicare for all, but then, when criticized for it, backing off it completely and promising to pass something else. We all know too well about that, right? Claiming that only billionaires would pay more under her Medicare for all plan, when that wasn't true. You've heard Joe Biden call her out for that one. Allowing Harvard Law School to claim her as his first woman of color. Claiming that a DNA test supported the contention that she was an American Indian, then deleting the evidence she had done this. Claiming to have been the first nursing mother to take the New Jersey bar, and then when asked for evidence, saying that she was making a point about the very serious challenges that she faced. Telling a dubious story about her grandparents having to elope because of discrimination. Saying she was not political in her younger years when she was in fact a diehard conservative Republican. Claiming recipes she copied word for word from the New York Times were ancient Cherokee family dishes. Pretending that she was releasing a health care plan that did not raise middle-class taxes. Claiming to have created the intellectual foundation for Occupy Wall Street. Criticizing the revolving door between the banking sector and the government despite personally putting bankers in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's a lot of stuff, Johnson. That's a lot of evidence to say that a person's honesty could be questioned, a person's veracity to tell the truth, a person's predilection to fabricate. Now we know there's none of us are free of sin. All of us have done things we shouldn't have done. We've all said things we shouldn't have said. But as a public person, it's kind of important to get some things right. It's important that your credibility be as pristine as possible because, well, you're running to represent other people and your credibility is all you really have. So, yeah, these things matter. My thing is, while we're having this conversation, no one's bringing up these issues. When I hear Angela Rye on, Don Lemon, CNN Don Lemon, opposite Cornel West, make a claim like, fight for Warren, obviously. why is there no mention of all of the lapses in judgment, all the falsities that she has spewed? I mean, if I could find this, she could find this. I'm sure Angela Rye, she works for Super PAC or organization, or Impact, or some organization in D.C. She gets paid well. She's got people. They got people. They can look up stuff. So it becomes harder and harder to believe that people just overlook. Oh, they missed that one. Oops, forgot it. When I hear other people whose names I won't mention because they really suck, their whole job is to gaslight and to lie. I mentioned Angela Rye because I think that she's an honest actor. But there's some others who will go totally devoid of facts, totally off-road mercenaries for Elizabeth Warren and for anything establishment and anything anti-Bernie. And all I'm saying is, if Bernie had a track record of lies like that, could they appear on TV and just continue to bombard us with it? Yeah, they would. They would continually run down this list of lies. Morning Joe would be carpet bombing the airwaves every morning. It wouldn't have been a tangential like, oh, well, maybe Elizabeth Warren, maybe she shouldn't have did this one. Maybe she wish she had this one back. I don't understand what she was thinking here. It would be a lot more than that, Mika. Oh, Mika, if it was Bernie Sanders with a track record of lying like this, I mean, the woman said she was of a race she is not of. And she got accepted into a school because of it. And she was listed as their first woman of color. Or something like that. They asked her permission. She said, yeah. She wrote it. And that's the person that you want to say, they're pulling punches on this thing. They're pulling punches on calling it straight. And I think there's a reason for it. I know there's a reason for it. The reason for it is they want her. It's basically anybody but Bernie. It could be Amy. They would do the same thing. They did the same thing for Joe Biden. There's clips of Joe Biden out here saying he supports cutting everything. Social Security and every government program there is, every safety net in government. He fought. He said, I not only supported, I fought. I'm one of the Democrats that fought to cut these government programs. All government programs should be cut. He didn't say that about the military-industrial complex, though, the war profiteers. But he's talking about cutting these people who support Joe Biden, these pundits, they're not calling that out. They're saying Joe's steady. Joe's rock solid. He's only rock solid because they don't put out the information about Joe that would destroy Joe, similar to Elizabeth Warren. See, as long as there's only Fox News talking about the horrible record of deceit that follows Elizabeth Warren, then she can maintain some type of respectability and momentum. But even that's going to start slipping because more and more people are going to start seeking out independent media as their go-to. They can't shut us all down. They can't limit us all. Some of us are going to crack the ceiling. Some of us are going to get through. Now, there is a big, George Carlin said there's a big club and you ain't in it. I don't know if the club is that big, but there's a club that we aren't in. I know there's a club that I'm not in, but I know I'm going to use every opportunity that I have to unveil and expose the BS that I see. Whether it's people silently working for other campaigns, undermining other campaigns while taking checks and hookups and boosts from other campaigns, while people are doing things and promises of jobs and cabinet positions, they have become part of the problem. And this is the thing I'm trying to get to, guys. And this is it. And this is what, because I can rant and I can get upset and I can yell, but I didn't really feel that about Michael Moore's podcast. I felt like he was hurt. I felt like he was hurt because he believed in this woman's ability to add to a movement that matters, that she could be a powerful force for good, and instead she went another way. Now, I don't know her at all, but I can put myself in the position of someone who believes in someone and then is let down. And through actions, not through words, not you got this one wrong, you got this story wrong. People give me grief for that shit. We're talking about actual things they did to to dampen a movement. Elizabeth Warren is fucking with our movement. And we have these people mincing words. We got these people falling back. We got them walking on eggshells, not calling it what it is. I respect the hell out of Michael Moore for calling this out. It's different to call it out when you actually know the person you're calling out. Like, it's got to be uncomfortable. You know, I don't think she'll be attending or participating in his next documentary, put it that way. But what about everybody else? Michael Moore doesn't have some exclusive access to facts regarding Elizabeth Warren. Why isn't Bakari Sellers calling this out? Where's Chris Hayes? Where's Rachel Maddow? Where's Wolf Blitzer? Where's Abby Phillips? Abby, don't you want to correct your record? Don't you want to clean it up? What about April Ryan? What about Joy Reid? What about Anderson Cooper? Anderson Cooper, you went one step, go another couple of steps. Don't let Tucker Carlson take all the shine. Where are you now? Where are you now when we need you to call this shit out? Why aren't you exposing it? Your lack of action, any lack of action, exposes really what you're about. It exposes really what your goal in game is. So I'm trying to be better. I don't want to revel in the fact that obviously Elizabeth Warren has a honesty deficiency, and that she has utilized that deficiency in order to catapult herself into positions. How you could work for somebody like that, how you could ignore reality, how you could suspend judgment and say, well, there must be a good reason. There must be a good reason. How long can you do that and sleep at night? How long can you do that and then have the audacity to point fingers at others and call other people Bernie bots and say that they are violent lying, or they are maniacal, obsessive, compulsive, rude, crude Bernie bros? How long can you defend the indefensible? Maybe people are, if they are overzealous, if they are overly passionate or angry or mad or pissed off, maybe it's because they keep getting lied to. Maybe they don't like the fact we've been taking the wars and lied to. Maybe that's part of the reason why they're so pissed off. Maybe they're upset because they lost a family member to a corrupt system. If they could have had the medication or had the treatment or caught the diagnosis earlier, but they don't have the proper level of insurance because we got a corrupt government in place. Maybe they're angry about that, or maybe they're angry because they lost their home in the foreclosure crisis while the banks got bailed out and they didn't. Maybe they're upset about that, or maybe they got a cousin whose future has been tainted and dampened because of a little bit of weed. He got a lot of bit of time and a lot of shit on his record that now hampers his ability to make his way in the world. Maybe there's a million reasons why we in the richest country that's ever existed, the citizens of that country are dogged down and pushed down. And maybe it's because maybe they're upset, or maybe they're angry about the fact that in a country that's that jacked up, the only thing they trust less than politicians are news people like you. Maybe that's the problem. But you can't even say that because you are check picker-upper. You are licensed, you are paid mercenary for the other side. You're not on the side of the people, because if you're on the side of the people, you'd have to be sitting where I'm sitting. Alone. Barely with a couple of pennies to put together. Barely making it, but having all your integrity intact. And when you're wrong, but not because somebody told you to be wrong, not because you're getting paid to be wrong, just because you actually did miss that one. Because, see, I don't think they missed this about Elizabeth Warren. It's too big to miss. It's too big to miss. If you can't see the corruption and the lies in Elizabeth Warren, then you are blind. You are legally blind. You are legally blind. You should not be able to drive vehicles. You are impaired. You didn't miss this one. You don't want to see this one. So here we have it. This is it. This is what we have. This is. I want to thank Michael Moore one more time for this. Nathan Robinson of Current Affairs MichaelMooreSports.org. Michael Moore's podcast is Rumble. You find it on iTunes, probably a couple other places. Look it up. Tomorrow will be Freedom Friday, where you get to call up and make your own comments. We'll open up phone lines, and we don't screen calls. It's whatever, right? I want to be a more compassionate person. I don't want to just say people are sellouts or people are scumbags. It's hard not to. It's hard not to when confronted with this level of hypocrisy and lies, and for them to go silent and let you look. If it was you and I, they wouldn't take our word. They look for one little thing, one scintilla of inconsistencies. One scintilla of inconsistency would deem you untrustworthy enough to be totally forced and thrust into the dustbin. No one would pay attention to what you had to say. Your credibility would be shot for one misinterpretation, one misfact, one misstatement. But she gets to make a grocery list of problems, a grocery list of untruths, and not just words, but in deeds as well, and they ignore it, and it's non-mentioned, it's unmentionables. It's the unmentionables. And it would be fine if she was dog catcher. It would be fine if she was just a lady who wrote fantastical stories. She had her own little blog, and she just sat in the corner of the internet doing her thing. But she wants to be president of the United States, and she is now in the way. She's in the way of this movement. She's trying to derail our movement for political gain, so the gloves must come off. And maybe it's our job to do it, and if we don't do it, that is an abject failure. It is a malpractice, and we should all be sued for it. So for all those in independent media who would like to keep your license to be considered fighters for the people, get to fighting.